project is all about communicating change within an organization or a business. The typical approach is how we learned in business school. We go and download a corporate blueprint that tells us how to do it. We get behind our desk with a pen, we chart it out, we make our task list, and we're going to drive results. But I found a problem in that. In my experience, after I graduated business school and got into managing teams, I realized that, if we just take an analytical approach, then we kind of miss the whole journey with our team. We miss communicating with them and building something together versus that old hierarchy of a boss and employees. I want to be a transformational leader where I have my role and their role, and we co-partner in it to create the organization's goals together. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, welcome to Chatting the Course, a roadmap for transformational change and communication. Today, we're going to talk about a big topic. I have spent 30 hours or more creating drafts of these types of plans, so we're going to do very high level. The 10 steps in my roadmap that I think you should all think about if you have to communicate change within an organization. First, let's talk about the definitions because they're important. Every leader will spin a definition to his or her own style. So we may think we know what charting the course means, but it's going to mean something different to an analytical leader versus a transformational leader or an analytical leader. So we want to make sure that we understand our leaders' definitions of these terms while we're working with them. Chatting the course versus charting the course. I alluded to this. We want to talk with our teams before we jump into huge projects versus charting out a course and being dictators in our roles. Corporate speak versus emotional intelligence. We spend a lot of time in business school learning corporate speak, right? We want to look important in front of our bosses and we know how to read charts, but then we get in front of teams and we sound like dictators. What do we have to do? We need a little emotional intelligence. We alluded to this last week. Sophia brought it up in a speech. I brought it up in her evaluation. And forget all the big fancy terms. Basically, emotional intelligence is just being aware of yourself and the people around you. Do they understand what you're saying? Can you feel if they're jiving with you? It's important because as leaders, we don't want to speak to show off. We want to speak to be heard. Another definition that's important is roadmap versus blueprint. We want to, as the leader, take our team along this journey with us versus us just charting the course. All right, this is my quick 10-step roadmap to communicating effective change in any organization or business. I found there were two things missing in the traditional way we learn about this in school, and I added them to the number 1 and number 2 slot. Mindset and clarity are my additions to the list. Then we have rally, plan, craft, orders, support, feedback, monitor, and evaluate. Yes, that sounds like a very long, boring business list, so I will try to make this engaging for you. Let's jump in. Mindset. Again, it's our mindset as leaders. If we're transformational or we're coaching or we're visionary, make sure you let your team know how you're thinking about this communication change and what the plan's going to look like. Clarity. One thing about clarity that a lot of bigger organizations miss is they give the marching orders to the sales director, the marketing director, customer service manager, and then the people executing those plans, they don't always have the big picture. So I always suggest, even in smaller groups, to have an all hands-on meeting. Have that clarity statement of what the big process is, because if you're in a sub-team, you may just be doing a little piece of that. So as you're working on your job, you don't have the whole vision. So be sure to be clear about the big picture with everyone involved in your project. Rally. We need to rally our audiences. And smaller teams sometimes forget that we know we have our employees and our team leaders and our managers, but we also have external teams like our vendors, our brand managers, our influencers. We need to make sure the people that are not on our payroll know how to communicate the change as well. Then we can get to the plan, the fun part. We know who all these audiences are, so we have to map out a plan. How are we going to get this information to them? What channels do we have in place? Internally, we may have all hands on meetings and newsletters and sales manager department meetings. Externally, we may have vendor breakfasts, or we may get all our influencers together. So make sure you look at everyone in the plan and pick the channels of communication that you need to reach them. Once we have our channels of communication, we can craft the messages. This is my favorite part. We don't want to speak the same way to our employees and our team members as we do to our vendors and our influencers. We want to craft messages for them to repeat. This is very important. Yes, they know the big picture and we've given them materials, but we want them in their lane, whether they're a vendor, a brand manager, what have you, to repeat our messages in the speak that we need them to. We don't want our brand managers talking like our sales manager, right? Salespeople have to close, and brand managers are more airy-fairy. They want to give us, an identity to the brand. So think of the messages and who you're crafting them for. Now we give everyone their marching orders. Now they have the big clarity. They know what we're doing. They have their specific piece of the pie. They know what audience they're going to go after. They've crafted a really great message to reach them, and we let them go. Let them do their job. But make sure you have support for everyone, even those internal and external vendors that we talked about that you may forget are part of your messaging. Make sure they have support. Your brand influencers and your internal employees, they're going to have different questions. So designate person in leadership for each of those groups to support those individuals. Feedback. I've seen this go really bad where people wait 6 weeks after they do a test communication plan. You want to get feedback within the first couple of weeks. Why? Because especially with social media and TikTok and YouTube, we're doing short videos and quick messaging. If we get it wrong up front and we let that go, it's going to be a lot harder to retract it, and craft the message that we need to craft. Monitor, in addition to looking at the analytical facts, make sure you look at social media and the softer pieces of information out there like social posts so you can get critical feedback while you're monitoring. And make sure to evaluate your program. Did it work? Did it not work? Why? Was it your fault? Did you not express things clearly? Evaluating is probably the most important part of this entire process. So friends, we can't just do action. We can't go in and have action. We have to inspire, we have to interact, and we have to innovate on purpose and with purpose. What magic will you craft when chatting your next course? Madam Toastmaster.